back to Belle's Library. I'm Heather, and we're going to do my April mid-month wrap-up. I have to say, I keep getting mixed up in the fact that it's April. I can't believe it's already this far into the year. Oh, it's just blowing my mind, and we're halfway through the month, which is ridiculous. Anyways, so I have 5 books to talk to you guys about today, and that's pretty good, although not where I want to be. I have a total of 9 books on my Belle's Bookland TBR that I absolutely have to get through this month so I don't have punishments like I did last month. And I'm making good progress there, but I had like 15 books that I really wanted to get through this month, and so halfway through I'm at 5 books, not quite on track for that. So I do have a plan for that though. I am going to try and make a daily goal of how many pages to read so that I can actually read all of the books possibly, but when I calculated it out, I need to read like 235 pages a day, which is quite chunky. So I just started this a couple days ago. I don't know that I'm actually going to be able to do it and finish all 15 of these books, but I was a little bit over. I think I read like 280 pages the first day, but then yesterday I think I only read like 180, so I don't know, I'm probably close to those evening out maybe. Math is not happening right now, and that's okay. So anyways, we're not here to talk about all of that nonsense. I did decide this month that I was going to start with Belle's Bookland TBR books because I was like, I don't want to take a punishment. So I really just, I'm going to like pound into all of these books, get them done, and then I'll go into some of the other fun books that I want to get into. And so that's what I did. I've read 5 out of the 9 books from that TBR, which is awesome. And I've had a pretty good reading month. I think I've enjoyed all the books except for one. Yeah, there was definitely one in there that, if you watched my reading vlog that came out earlier this week, I definitely had a little bit of a rant going with that one. But, I mean, it was my own fault. I had to take punishment, and it was one of my punishment books. So we'll get to that one in a little bit. Let's go ahead and start, though, with the first book that I finished this month. I finished Horse Store First by Grady Hendrix. I've been really wanting to get to more of his work since I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I always have to like pause and think about the title of that book because it's so long, and I just am like, wait, book club, Southern vamp, I don't know, just putting all the words together, it just takes me a second. Anyways, this one is really fun because it's set up kind of like an IKEA catalog, but the store is called Orsk, and you have like, welcome to Orsk, and it's like all this furniture that you like put together, and each chapter starts with a furniture item at the beginning, and it explains it, and the whole entire story pretty much happens within this store, and we're following Amy, who works at the store, and she has a lot of potential to be able to do more, but she just doesn't tap into that and doesn't like think it's worth it at, you know, her job. And so her and her manager kind of can butt heads a little bit. And then we also have Basil, who is the manager, and he really believes that Amy has more in her than she does, but again, they definitely butt heads. And we have Ruth Ann is another kind of character we follow a little bit in the story, and she is a long-time employee. She's been with Orsk for like 20 years or something like that, and she just is so helpful, and Orsk is just really her life. It's what she does, and she, you know, is very connected with the other employees, and everybody loves her, and, you know, she's just like the older lady that is just committed to her job and doing her thing. So those are our main characters we're following, and they basically are having some weird things happen in the store. Like, they'll come in the morning and get ready to set up, and like a couch is trashed or something, or there's water on the ground, or just something weird. And so they're having corporate out, and the manager's like, we need to figure out what the heck's happening. And so he enlists Amy and Ruth Ann to stay overnight with him in the store. And obviously things definitely go wrong, and it turns into a horse store. Sorry if you can hear my cats. They are being butt heads to each other. Anyways, So I ended up finishing this book in like 2 days. It was pretty quick read. It's only like 200 something pages, I think. Yeah, 240 even with the epilogue. And so it was a pretty fast read, but I also was pretty intrigued and into the story, and I wanted to know what was going to happen. And so my rating's probably going to be a little controversial. I don't know if people have read this before. I was looking at the rating on Goodreads and it's like a 3.6, but I rated this 5 stars, which I know is kind of, I don't know. So I rated this 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. Like, I flew through it. I thought it was fun. There was moments when I was like getting a little, like, my heart was racing a little. I was like, what's gonna happen? No, my characters. And you know, some bad stuff's happening to these people. Like, it's not, you know, we're not gonna glance over that. And I think that Grady Hendrix does a good job of, you know, writing some really interesting characters. And yeah, the warden was a super interesting character, and kind of the backstory about what's going on. I won't say too much, but behind the horror side of this horror store and what's haunting this store is very interesting, and I really enjoyed that piece. This book, though, I think why it's so controversial and why it has kind of a lower rating is that I feel like not everybody would enjoy this story as much as I did. I think some people would, and I think it's really fun, and I think a lot of people would at least enjoy it a little bit, and I think it's worth picking up. But to me, it also felt like one of those, like, ghost hunter type shows that you watch and they're like, oh, did you hear that? And you're like, oh, I didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden there's, like, you know, some garbledy-gook that they turn into something, or, you know, like, those shows freak me out. Like, I don't get scared often, but I would be, like, so invested in them. I'm just, like, watching. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Oh no, oh gosh, there's ghosts. And I'm, like, freaking out. That's what this book felt like. Like, it just felt like one of those shows, and I just was, like, entranced and addicted and sucked into it. So that's why it's got 5 stars for me. There it is. So the next book that I read, I was really feeling kind of the horror vibes, and I was super excited to get into this book as well. So I went ahead and started into Dead Voices by Katherine Arden. Now, this is the sequel to Small Spaces, which I read in January, and I adored this and gave it 5 stars. I flew through this in like a day. It was super fast, super fun. But Dead Voices was, again, following the same 3 characters. This is a middle grade horror novel, and we're following Ollie and Coco and Brian, and they are all taking a ski trip with their families up into the mountains, and they're going to be staying at this hotel that is going to be opening soon, and so they're kind of like doing like a pre-opening for a certain guest or whatever, and their parents had gotten invited, so they're headed up there. And there's like a huge storm happening, and like nobody's making it there, and they barely make it to the hotel, so it's just them and the people who are running the hotel there. And then randomly, like, a reporter shows up, and they're like, wow, how'd you get through this storm? Like, we barely made it. And so you have this kind of isolated setting up in this snowy area, and of course, you know, there's a ghost. And the reporter's like, oh yeah, I'm not here about the hotel. I'm here because there's a famous ghost story attached to this building. And so then, you know, things kind of ensue from there. So I definitely enjoyed this one quite a bit. I absolutely love these books because they kind of combine a bunch of fun things. Like, you get a little bit of the horror element, and then there's usually some kind of mystery, and like, it's always like a puzzle mystery. You're trying to like put these pieces together to figure it out, to try and beat the big bad guy or whatever. So I really enjoy that, and you've got some good suspense in there, and you're just like, it grips me and it gets me in there. I ended up rating this one 4 stars. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Small Spaces. I really just flew through that one and enjoyed it, and I think I read this in a couple days too, and I definitely wildly enjoyed it. It just wasn't quite as much of an enjoyment as Small Spaces was, but really liked it regardless. I thought one of the twists at the end was definitely kind of interesting. I wasn't really like expecting it completely. Like, there was a part of it that I was suspecting, and I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to go that way, and it did, but there was a piece of that I hadn't placed together, and it connected it into that first book a little bit too, and so I thought that was really interesting, and I'm excited to continue in this series. There's going to be 4 books, and I know the 3rd one's out, but I don't think the 4th one's out until this year, so I will have to look into those ones. I think the next one is, they're like going to a lake, so it's like a watery one. So we've got like up in the mountains in the snow, and we've had on a farm, and then we're going to be doing like a pond and like camp or something. I don't know. I'm excited. All right, so the next book we're going to talk about is The Asylum by Harwood. This was one of my punishment books. I had to read a book with a very low rating. It was like within my lowest ratings on Goodreads for my TBR, I believe. And so I went ahead and went with this one, and I definitely understand why it's got such a low rating. I honestly don't remember very much about this story, and it just like, I think it could have been an interesting story, but just need to be written like completely different. Like, there was no depth to it. It was just flat and dull. Like, you didn't get to know the characters. You had no feelings. I could, like, imagining the atmosphere, it's just like blurry blobs. I'm like, oh yeah, over here we have this hotel, and then we have this asylum, and then there's like an uncle with an estate, and they're just like, I can't envision any of it. The characters were just, I don't know, and some of the like plot twists, like he used the same plot twist a couple times in there, and I was just like, why can't we think of something different? Can we make this a little bit more interesting, more intriguing? And then there were so many different like family lines you were trying to follow, and like they were all intersecting in some way, and you're just like, there's way too much going on. Like you're making this way too convoluted and complicated, and I just no. There was really nothing about this book that intrigued me, entertained me. Like, it just, I kept waiting for something to happen. Like, it was literally like, you know how like books you get like that rise, and you're just like, whoa, this is happening, and we're going fast, and then things kind of slow down, and you're just learning, and you're down here, and then whoa, we pick up, and just like, that's just how a book goes, is it kind of like just to keep you intrigued and moving and the story going. Nope, this was just like, we're just going to stay at this pace all the way through. Just give me something. I guess I didn't really tell you what this is about. I don't even know that I can explain what this is about. Basically, we have, oh gosh, I can't remember her name anymore. This woman, what was her name? Like Lisa or something? I don't know. Anyways, our main character, female protagonist, she wakes up in a mental asylum one morning, and the doctor's telling her that she came in the night before, and she admitted herself, and she's there under a voluntary admit, but they're trying to figure out who she is because the name she gave them doesn't seem to be correct, they keep calling her a certain name, and she's like, that's not me, I'm this person. And so then they're like, well, let's try and verify that. And, somehow she goes from this voluntary admit, and they are like, no, you've got something actually wrong, we're going to make you stay here. And she's like, there's nothing wrong with me, what in the heck is happening? Why isn't anybody believing me? So it's kind of the setup of our story. It was boring. The plot twists were boring. It was overused. It was flat. The characters just had nothing. There was just nothing to grab onto in the story. I don't know. I'm done with that. We're over it. We didn't like it. Moving on. The next book that I did read was Love from A to Z, and this is by S.K. Ollie, and I really enjoyed this one as well. This is a story about Adam and Zainab, and they are both traveling to Doha on breaks from school, and they meet because Zainab's aunt that she's staying with works at a school there, and then Adam's dad is the principal at the school, and so they run into each other, and they're both Muslim, and they seem to be liking each other, and they're becoming friends. So it's a romance, but you're really like following them getting to know each other and become friends more. And in the Muslim culture, they can't be alone together, and they're not really supposed to they're not really supposed to touch. And, so they're supposed to kind of get to know each other, but with other friends and family around, and the guy asks the parents if he can start to get to know her, and with the intent of wanting to have more. So I thought it was really interesting to like learn a little bit more about their culture and how all of that goes. And I thought it was really sweet that they became friends first, and they were, you know, had that foundation relationship happening and everything. And I thought that was really cute. The story has definitely kind of this lighter tone to it in a lot of ways, but then also it has some very good conversation topics, and I think the author did a great job of tackling them and making them talked about in like such a way that you can follow it and you can understand it and you can grip it, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I can see that. I didn't see it before maybe, and I didn't know like necessarily how to talk about it or what to say or whatnot, but like I'm glad that it's being brought to life and being talked about. So a couple of those things were Adam has MS, and he is kind of dealing with being diagnosed with MS, and so that's something new for him. And then Zainab, she is struggling with Islamophobia from people, and that she's getting lumped into being a bad person just because she wears a hijab, and she's Muslim. So it's a very enlightening read, but then also with the romance in there, it's just kind of sweet and light, and they balance each other out very well. You have some great topics of conversation, as well as just a nice friendship and romance budding between the two of them. Overall, I ended up giving that one a 4-star. I definitely very much enjoyed reading it, and it was a really good YA romance. I wouldn't say that it's like your typical YA romance, because you don't have a ton of like the kind of romance that is normally talked about, but it's still romance and they're still building a relationship, so it's just a little different. Okay, and the last book I literally just finished this morning was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I feel like this is a really popular book here on BookTube. It is a sci-fi novel, and a lot of people started reading the second one that just recently came out and found it to be kind of a dud. I don't know that I will continue on, to be quite honest. I enjoyed Ready Player One quite a bit, and if I had heard any good things about Ready Player 2, then I probably would. But I don't think I've seen a single review that has talked positively about that book. So they say that they just wish it would have been left as its standalone self. So I think I'm just going to leave it as its standalone self, because I definitely very much enjoyed it. So this story, we're following Percival or Wade, depending on where he's at. So in the real world, he's Wade, but you can basically hook yourself into the Oasis, which is this online virtual reality game area, and basically you can plug yourself into this and do like everything from in there. You can like make money within there, you can go to school, you can play games, there's like tons of different planets and galaxies and sectors, and just it's like this whole immersive world pretty much that you can get into. And when the creator dies, he basically sets up this game, and he's like, if you can figure out my clues and find my Easter egg, you get to have my entire, like, you get to own the company, the game, have all this money that he has, like he's giving it all to whoever can win this contest, basically. And so we're following Wade as he is in this game, and he's trying to figure it out, and he's trying to make it there, and he's trying to win, and obviously there's a lot of other people trying to win and play. So some of the things that I really enjoyed about this story were it had a lot of really fun like 80s pop culture type stuff going on. Halliday, who created the game, was very into the 80s. That's when he grew up in his childhood and his teenage years, and he references a lot of like old games and music and movies and everything from that era. And you know, our main character's like studying and watching all of these old movies, and it's just, that was really fun, and I really enjoyed that piece of it. I also thought it was a really interesting topic piece on the idea of our world really, like, could, I feel like, go in this direction and just become so virtual that we just literally are always plugged in. I think that we all kind of just get so sucked into our electronics. I mean, literally, I put my daughter in front of her tablet. She wants to watch on it, and like I have to like yell her name like 5 times to get her attention. She's just so in it. So I think that, you know, it just is an interesting concept of, is this where our lives will go? I mean, look at, we started into this pandemic and then everybody went online for schooling and work, and they're working from home. And, you know, there's scenes in this story where he's like, literally like, I could just sit here and like live my life in this oasis. And like, you know, he's just sitting there like playing a game. And I don't know, it's just a very interesting concept to think about, and the idea that our world could really go that way. And, you know, he talks about how the world, everybody kind of escapes into this other world because the real world ain't looking so great, and everybody's ignoring it, and it's crumbling, and you know, there's an energy crisis, and it just, yeah, very interesting idea. And I definitely can see that, you know, it is applicable into our world. But besides that, I mean, it wasn't really in your face. It just was an interesting thought to have while you were, you know, enjoying the story. But I really enjoyed, like, the pace of this was very fast. Like, I felt like I went through this book really quickly. I was intrigued. I was into it. I was like, what's going to happen next? You know, there's 3 different keys that you have to collect, and so you're working through all these puzzles, and it was very intriguing and interesting in the gameplay, and I really enjoyed all of the pop culture references that we were talking about. I think, so this one I ended up giving a 4-star, and I don't know if it's just like the hype around this book, like everybody's like loving this book, 5 stars, everybody's, you know, raving about it, and I don't feel like it was an all-time favorite. I don't think it was like that kind of status for me, as much as I definitely very much enjoyed it and I went through it very quickly. I don't think that it's like an all-time favorite for me, and there were a couple times when I was just like, I feel like this is a little too easy for you. You're being like, all of a sudden you have this thing in your inventory that immediately can transport you over here. Okay, so like some of that I was just like, I want it to be maybe a little bit harder for you, but at the same time, like, it was kind of just light and fun, and it kept it a little less serious, so maybe that's just kind of the tone. I don't know. I thought in a couple instances that it felt a little easy for our character, and I was just like, okay, we'll go with it. So if you just kind of let that stuff ride, then you know, you're definitely going to enjoy the story. It just, for me, it didn't hit that full 5-star level, and you know, that's okay. It was 4 stars, still definitely very much enjoyed it, and I am glad that I did read it. So I think that's it. That's my 5 books. I hope you guys have been enjoying your reading month. Tell me right now, what's been your favorite book, or if you have a book that you're ranting about right now and feeling the same as my Asylum book, then let me know down below. And I would absolutely love it if you guys would throw me an emoji down there. I don't know which one. My brain's not really thinking about one right now, so just whatever you guys feel like. Say hey, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!